All right, Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. All right, what we're going to be doing today is going over the troubleshooting and disassembly of the IWATA HP-BCS bottle feed airbrush. I'm actually doing a re-recording of this because I have better audio. The other audio wasn't as good, and I actually forgot some things, so I'm going to add it into this revised recording here. So what we're going to do first off, we're going to take off the back end, the handle. Okay. For the most part, let's put this back together. For the most part, this is how it comes out of the box. Okay. Aside from this quick disconnect piece, this is an addition that I added to the actual airbrush itself, which I highly recommend because it's very useful when you're actually working and you have to move between colors and things of that nature. So it's a quick disconnect unit that actually adds on to the actual airbrush hose itself. But we'll go ahead and take this off and then start off taking off the handle. The handle, for the most part, I never use the handle because I want quick access to this needle, as you'll come to find out why I need quick access to that needle. And typically the airbrush will also come with a crown. So I'm putting it back on, but I'm taking it back off. Okay. So we take off that crown because it initially comes with that. And I never use the crown also, except for transport, but I don't use it for the very reason you just saw, for the very reason for what you just saw me doing, which was removing dry paint from the tip of the airbrush. When you're airbrushing, it tends to, because of the airflow, it tends to dry up on the tip of the needle, which will affect the actual flow of the actual line of the airbrush. So you want to keep that clean as possible so that your line is clean as possible. Okay, so that's the first things we're going to remove. We're going to remove the handle. We're going to remove the crown. Okay, then we're going to go ahead, remove this bottle, just get it out the way. We're going to go ahead and take off the nut from the back. Okay, and we're going to remove the needle. Okay, and then we're going to remove the insides. So we could just take a look at what the insides are made of and how they're organized and fashioned. Okay, here we go. We have the insides here. Okay, it's basically that creates recoil for the trigger. But you have on the inside, this is what it's made of. Okay, you have the shaft, you have the spring. The spring goes inside the cylinder here. Then the nut goes on the back, and that spring on the inside is what the trigger presses on. Okay, and that pushes the trigger back to center. Okay, so that's how that looks. Okay, sometimes this will get clogged up on the inside here. Okay, right here. If you look at this, it actually spreads out, and the nut actually closes it. It's three pieces that the nut closes around the actual needle itself at the back here. Okay, so now you want to be able to have this part clear. So what I'll do is, a lot of times with the back of the needle, I'll go and I'll clear whatever accumulated paint may have accumulated around this area. I'll push it through, clean that out, because you're going to need that clean when you're cleaning your airbrush in the future. Okay, when you're actually doing a flush, and you'll see that after we put the airbrush together, you'll see what a flush is. So then after that, you want to remove the trigger. Okay, the trigger, okay, has a little swing arm on the bottom. Okay, you want to be mindful of that when you're putting it together, when you're reassembling it. Then you want to disassemble the head assembly. But before we disassemble the head assembly, I want to go to a quick problem that sometimes arises, which is air pressure. The air pressure, sometimes if you don't have any air coming out, or you have, weak air that's happening, a lot of times it'll happen at the tip here. Okay, at the upper part of the head assembly. Okay, so what you want to do is take off the top part. Okay, so you can see what's on the inside here. Okay, that's with it removed. Okay, and what this is exposing is the actual tip of the nozzle and the tip of the needle. Let me get this in here so you can see how the needle looks coming through there. Okay. What happens is sometimes paint will accumulate on the inside here, and it'll block the exit hole here, not allowing any air to go through. So sometimes if you have air pressure going into the stem of the airbrush, but there's no air pressure coming out, a lot of times that is because there's an accumulation of paint around the nozzle and the exit hole for the air. So you want to make sure that that's clear. Okay. And that's how it would look when you put it on. You take it off. Okay. Let's get this gun cleaned up a little bit here. Okay, so then we're going to take off the rest of the head assembly. All right. Okay. And another issue that may happen with airflow, I don't know if you can see that here, but there are 3 holes. Okay. Let me make sure you can see this through the airbrush thing there. But there's 3 holes in here. I hope you can see it. There's 3 holes in here. Sometimes those, for whatever reason, they get clogged. So you want to go with the tip of your airbrush and just push through whatever may have accumulated in there. Make sure you have a nice airflow going through there. Now that deals with the airflow with regard to the head assembly. As far as paint flow is concerned, then you have the nozzle. Okay, you have the nozzle. The nozzle, that's part of the airbrush. Okay, we take that off. Sometimes with the nozzle, there'll be accumulated paint, dried paint on the inside of the nozzle. So what I'll do with the needle, so I'll flip the needle around. Okay, and I'll start scraping the walls of the nozzle and allowing it to accumulate in the front of the nozzle. Then I flip the needle around and I push whatever accumulated in there out of there. Matter of fact, I got some coming out of there. There you go. You get to see some. See that? That'll definitely affect your paint flow, and it'll cause a lot of spitting and choppiness in your line when you're airbrushing. This is important to know in the beginning, because when you're practicing, you want to be able to problem solve any issues and troubleshoot any issues that may arise even while you're practicing. Okay, it happens. Okay, so I believe we have it all right here. This is the gun completely disassembled. Let's get a little bit of organization here so we can see how it looks here. Okay, let's get that organized. Okay, matter of fact, we'll do it this way. There you go. Okay, let's throw that over here so it doesn't get confusing. And that trigger right there. Okay, that's how we look. Okay, so now we want to reassemble it. Actually, I want to show you something as well. Right here in the stem, sometimes you'll get, like, if you're working on a job site or something, you'll have, let's say you're working, it's a lot of dirt, a lot of sand. If you're doing a mural outside or something, if sand or dirt gets inside of here, sometimes it'll get inside of the stem and it won't allow the air to shut off. It happens. It very rarely happens, but it does happen, where you'll have a continuous airflow going. You're like, well, why is it not shutting off? Well, it's not shutting off because you have some dirt or debris that may have gotten in between the washer, okay, and the seat that allows the air to come in. So what you want to do is with the back part of your needle, there's a little hole inside of here. Okay, that's where the trigger sits. The trigger sits in that hole. Now you want to go and push with the back of your needle, push in, right? And it's going to push. This is not the needle that's coming through. I'm going to flip it upside down so you can see it better. Okay, that's not the needle coming through. That's actually a part of the air inlet device. Okay. And what it does, it knocks loose whatever's in there. So that's important to know. A lot of people don't know that, but that's a real quick trick to get your air to shut off if it doesn't shut off, if it's continuous. Okay, so Let's start the reassembly. Okay, let's do the head assembly first. Okay, let's put the nozzle. Okay, let's put the midsection of the head assembly. Just finger tighten it for now. And the top part of the head assembly. Okay, I'm just gonna finger tighten right now. Okay. Once you have that, let's move to the middle of the airbrush. And we're gonna go ahead. Now remember, this trigger has a swing arm on it. Okay, so you're gonna have to probably just play with it a little bit to get it in that little hole that's there, but it'll get in there. Sometimes you get it right away. Sometimes you have to play with it. Depends on how it feels that day. Let's see. There we go. Got it. Okay, now it's in there. Another important thing to note is that on the back of this trigger, there's a little concaved area. That concaved groove in that trigger goes to the back of the airbrush. Okay. Now, once you have it in there, don't turn it upside down. Don't do anything like that. It'll fall out. We got to take this out anyways because I have to show you this. There's a little hole inside of here. The reason it'll fall out is because the needle is what keeps that trigger in there. If you don't have the needle in there, it'll fall out. So make sure when you put it in, you actually slide it through that hole there. Okay. There we go. It's back in there. Okay, now we're going to assemble the back portion of the airbrush that houses the trigger mechanisms. Okay, so now I want to do that again. Let's put that together again, slow motion. Okay. Okay. Cylinder, shaft, spring on shaft. Okay, cylinder over the shaft and spring, and then put your nut. Okay. Got it? Let's try it one more time. Okay. Cylinder. Okay. Shaft, spring on top of shaft, shaft on top of spring, and cylinder on top of shaft and spring. Then you have your nut. Okay. When you put this in, remember this front portion has a little swivel piece that rests on the trigger. So you want to come in on an angle. Okay. And then proceed to tightening it up. You want to make sure it's fully tight so you can have a nice recoil, a nice tension. Okay. Open your nut up a little bit so your needle slide in. Okay. Needle should be fully in. I got a little paint coming out the bottom here. Okay. Your airbrush should be good to go. Now what you want to do is when you put your bottle back on your airbrush, or you're spraying for the first time for the day, you want to make sure with the back of your airbrush, the needle, okay, you make sure you poke a little hole in your breather hole, because a lot of times that paint will clog up and it'll affect how your paint sprays. There's a lot of reasons why we don't have this handle attached to the airbrush when we're actually spraying. And when I say we, I'm talking about a lot of us who are actually in the airbrush field doing this professionally full time. And that's one of the reasons why we don't have that handle on there. The other reason is for ease of flush. Okay. You want to be able to flush this out. And again, earlier, I told you how this clogs up. That'll affect how you flush out, because if you have enough paint clogging up around here, it'll snag the needle and won't allow for it to go back and forth easily when you're doing the flush. So you want to make sure that section is clean. So then what I'll do is I'll go ahead and remember we have this quick disconnect, so we're going to add that back on. This is something that's bought separately again. I highly recommend it. Okay, so we're going to add that on. Okay, remember the head assembly is only hand tightened, so I'm going to tighten it slightly, not too much. Okay, Not too much. The reason you don't want to tighten it too much because there's a weld here. If that weld snaps, the airbrush will never spray again, right? It just it just won't. You might as well just toss it in the trash. It's not going to work right. So be careful not to tighten this up too tight. Okay. What's another issue that could happen here with the head assembly? A lot of times the air will have, let's say if you're getting a lot of dots like that, it's simply because your entire head assembly is too loose. Okay. If it's too loose, you'll have air being sucked in while air is being pushed out, and it'll have a dot effect. Like all you have to do is just tighten that up. A lot of times you can just tighten it up by hand. There's a washer here also. Okay. To remove this washer, I take the needle out again. Okay. I don't know if you can see that, but it goes in, and there you go. Okay. Can you see that? You just can you can remove the washer when you're cleaning. Be careful not to lose that nozzle. But look at this. Oh, I'm great. I'm glad it came out. But look at this. Look at that gun, that buildup right there. Okay. These guns are amazing. I mean, they're not sensitive at all. I mean, they can work through mud. Seriously, they really can. So I'm not really worrying about that. But it's easy if you know how to clean it. Yeah, they will gunk up at times. You know, just they clean very fast. This is your first time learning it, so it seems like a big process, but it literally takes seconds. When you're flowing and you're already in the groove, you already know what you have to do. Is 1, 2, 3. That washer is vitally important because that's what allows for the head assembly to create a seal. It creates a seal so air is not being sucked in through there. Okay, if you don't have that washer, you're gonna have a lot of headaches. Okay, so then we put the needle back in. Okay, remember we want to flush it, so we push it down for air. There we go. There you go. You hear that? It's pushing out all that gunk that we knocked loose. Okay, you still have some going on. There we go. That's still a little bit in there. See, that might be coming up from the actual tube itself, but you can feel it building up inside of the nozzle. So, and again, this is after using it for some time. So I feel it building up in the nozzle. And the way you can feel it building up in the nozzle, you know, when it's clean, it has like a hard impact. When it's starting to clog up, it's like a soft, cushiony impact of the needle to the nozzle. So you can see I felt a cushiony feel to it. So when you feel a cushiony feel to it, that means there's some gunk being, you know, pushed into the nozzle that's not being pushed out of it when you're spraying. And that could have just simply come from when we were just cleaning it earlier. But it's good to know this now, so this way you know how to troubleshoot the issues when they occur, because they will occur. When they occur, you'll know how to troubleshoot them. Okay, let's push it back in there. I want you to hear how it sounds when you have a good flow. Okay, next thing I'm gonna look at is this. The airbrush is good. Now what I'm looking at right now is, yeah, see, that's the problem. See this? It has to do with the bottom. Okay, you want to make sure all of your stuff is clean. Yeah. Again, this is when you have everything set up and ready to go, it's 1, 2, 3. You have no issues. Okay. And while I'm moving this, I can actually feel that the needle itself has a little bend in it. So I want to go with this is called 1000 grit wet dry sandpaper. So I just want to go real quick. Oh, you see that? I felt it. And this knocks out any bends that are in the needle. Brings it back to new, or even sometimes better than new. Yeah, it's ready to go. Okay, so we solved that issue. We had a little issue with the needle, so we solved that. Let's take this off and just clean this out real quick, because now there's an issue with this. Look at this. Look at how that's gunking up in there. You don't want that. You see that? See, I can't be afraid to get messy with this paint, I tell you. Okay, just wipe that off. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna go with a pipe cleaner. I believe I go into more detail with this in another lesson, but we're just gonna do it real quick right now. Just knock loose whatever's in there. Get it back to a nice operating position. So let's get it going. Got paint all over my hands, but listen, if you're afraid to get paint on your hands, airbrushing is not for you. You definitely want to wear gloves when you're working with chemicals, but you know, we're working with water-based paints right now, so I'm not really worrying about it. Oh, that's nice. Oh, that's nice. You hear that? Oh, that's a nice flow. I still hear little goobers in there. You hear that? It wants to come out. That means something else is wrong here. Let's see. Okay, there's a marble inside of this bottle. It just shakes up the paint real good. Sometimes if the paint settles, sometimes the paint sits for a little while, it'll settle and get real thick on the bottom. So you want to just shake it up a little. I think that. Yeah, this thing has a lot of gunk going on. There's real life troubleshooting on here, because now we're having some real life issues. We did say it was troubleshooting, right? So now we're troubleshooting real life stuff. Okay, again, you're going to have the gunks in there. Okay, so if that's not working, let's just go through the whole process. I guess it's meant to see the whole process all the way through then. So I'm going to go with a pipe cleaner. Just knock loose whatever's in there on the inside. Okay. I'll twist it around my little finger here and come inside. Okay. All right, let's get it going again. Get the nozzle back on there. Head assembly. Oh, get you on there. Head assembly. Tighten it up, not too tight. Remember, you don't want to break that weld. Okay. You have this. You have this. It teased me before. I had a nice flow, but let's see. There it goes. That's what it was. You see that? That's what you want. Look at that. It got a little bit coming through, but you can work with that. It's gonna push through. Now, what was it all for? Okay. Make sure it's all tight. Make sure it's calibrated right. Oh, she's ready to go. Okay. Okay. Again, now what I'm doing is removing any tip dry that's on here. Okay. This was a real life troubleshooting. Okay. So you're constantly going to be doing it, especially when you're doing t-shirts. You know, the acrylic paint for the t-shirt tends to dry up like that. So you're going to have tip dry. It's like a rubbery type paint. So you're going to have that. But once you're flowing, I'm telling you, it's the airbrush is a phenomenal tool. Once you get it going, it's going to be your best friend. I love this. I love this tool. To me, it's the most powerful tool in my toolbox right here. Okay, it's ready to go. Okay, you had a real life troubleshooting scenario. I didn't even have to stage it. It was real life. So hopefully it works for you, inshallah. All right, Assalamu alaikum.